Gabriela, thank you for being here. You're starting by taking over the operations of your father ranch in Uruguay. In 2015, you launched your eponymous label. You wanted to create a brand that reflects a slower pace and process, things made with care, detail. Tradition is more important than trade, where there is a purpose to every piece. You always had ethics and values in mind. You want to know where material come from, who is making them. And for your collection shown in New York in September 2019, you produced the first ever carbon neutral runaway show. You received many awards, and especially the 2020 American Women's Wear Designer of the Year award at the CFDA, and the Environment Honorary Award from the British Fashion Council. And in December 2020, you joined Chloé as the artistic designer. So once again, thank you for giving us the pleasure and honor of sharing your vision of the evolution of fashion for Change Now and Paris Good Fashion. And just before the first question, I would like to remind you that Paris Good Fashion is an association of 80 members, brands, federations, schools, retailers, and other fashion actors. The objective is to make of Paris the capital of sustainable fashion. Gabriela, the subject of sustainable fashion has exploded in the last 2 years and has been reinforced by the COVID crisis. How do you explain it?
Well, first, thank you for having me, Sylvie. You are a leader. You're my influencer. I follow any trend you set. I think that I think Paris should be the sustainable capital because they are the fashion capital, and I believe that people are starting to realize. Because it's impossible to ignore the magnitude of climate change. I mean, we're feeling it daily, and the change is rapid, and it's not such an invisible killer anymore. And I think that has permeated into many industries, and especially ours as well. But what it's clear that COVID did tell us is that this traumatic experience that we felt globally was that, as you said, the question is always, can we change fast enough? And with COVID, we change our habits fast enough. So I think this is why the change is coming rapidly, because in a way, COVID realizes that main aspect, that we change fast our habits, and two, that just as COVID, if we don't, climate change needs to disappear from everywhere. It's not that the environment knows what a political delimitation is.
Thank you. What are for you the most positive advances you see?
Well, I'm going to speak of our industry specifically. The ability, first of all, recycling and upcycle became a common practice, and repurposing as well. And so obviously there are different upcycle systems that we know some are better for the environment, but the fact that this became a common practice, and it's not felt antagonistic to the word luxury, as it was just a few years ago when we did our first show with dead stock materials in 2017. You cannot use the word dead stock or upcycled with the word luxury, and I think that mentality is rapidly changing. And you know as well as anyone that a lot of it has to do with just a change of mind. A lot can be done. So the mind is changing. There's more availability of and a more push from our vendors for transparency. I've started to see it a lot in the yarns, and a lot also in the demand of our client, that it's looking for that transparency. When we started Gabriela Hearst, it was always from a love of quality and long-term view on sustainability, but we knew that the clients were buying us because they loved the design. But now more than ever, they're starting to ask how things are made, or where is it coming from, and I don't need this extra bag. So we're seeing the change happen as well from a client perspective too. So this is supply and demand.
Thank you. And on the other side, where are the subjects, the area where we definitely should still improve?
I think I see a better, I see a, what's the word? A truthful intent that can actually be achieved in practice to the waste program, the different AIs that are calculating waste so we don't overproduce. So that's very hopeful. But I think that it's all energy and transportation. In my particular experience with Gabriela Hearst, per se, from our conversation that we always had, when you told me, I was like eye-boggling when I told you all our efforts in sustainability, and you were like, well, if you're shipping it by plane, it doesn't really matter. You may be making T-shirts in Far East and shipping them by boat. That would be more sustainable. But that is a part that I struggle a lot, where to get into shipping by vessel that has the lower impact with the freight. I feel like I have a good handle on the materiality, a good handle on the packaging. We can always do better on packaging, but eliminating plastic hangers and reducing volumes and all that, it's something very achievable. But it's in transportation when I get stuck. And I think that if that's true to me, it might be true to many.
Thank you. There are many common initiatives such as the Fashion Pact, Paris Good Fashion, the Fashion Agenda. Do you think that it is by joining forces with other actors in the fashion world that we will be able to move forward more quickly?
Oh yes, 100%. I think that anything, I have this very philosophical view. I don't know if it's philosophical or common sense, but my perspective is that anything that unites us, it's pro evolution, pro continue our species in this planet, and anything that divides us will basically be the demise. So whenever we have a chance to work collectively, we know that there's success. I mean, I grew up in South America where there was a very thin ozone layer. I actually have, skin cancer as a 26-year-old soul myself because of this thin layer of ozone. And that was something that collectively we worked towards resolving, and it was resolved, and at least in a great degree. Or the same thing where all the different intelligence agencies started working together after September 11. I think there's a more of a collectiveness efforts, if you want. I'm giving you different examples of where globally we can work towards a bigger picture.
Mm-hmm. And are you member of some of these collective actions?
Yes. Chloé has signed the Fashion Pact, and the commitments are really the ones that are necessary.
And Chloé is member of Paris Good Fashion.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You are now the artistic director of Chloé, and you have your brand in New York. Do you see a difference in the way sustainable development is understood and implemented on both sides of the Atlantic?
I think Europe has been a bit more developed in the sense from state governments. And Germany penalizes their car industry if they don't meet their carbon footprint goals. That type of regulation is still not applied. But from the industry perspective, I think there's a bit more regulation that's needed in the US for sure. But when it comes to my personal experience, in GH, we were able to apply a lot of things, and our suppliers are actually one of the hangars is Ditto. It's American based, and so there's a lot that has been. And America is actually good at recycling cardboard, and that's what our hangars are made. So I do feel that there's a lot of innovation that can happen from the US because we're very good at that too. And the one thing I'm being very excited was the idea that I was a question more than idea, if the things we were implementing in GH in these 7 years could be upscaled and move to a larger structure? And the answer is yes, which was fantastic news. So we've been working very collaborative with information and research and development that we did. For example, our hangers that were cardboard hangers that I was just speaking about, the first deteriorations would break when we were sending coats, and now we have one that Chloé can use, or any luxury brand can use, that actually doesn't break when you hang a coat on it. So that's good news.
Thank you. There are so many issues that need to be addressed at the same time, and they are often interdependent. Eco-design, new materials, recycling, upcycling, human rights, regenerative agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
How do you organize yourself to be able to embrace all these subjects?
I mean, it's like, it's looking at a system and an organism, right? It's like you're gonna look at your body, and if you're approaching a place of unhealthiness, you're gonna look at the whole system, because everything gets affected. So with human rights also, it's the environment, it's tied together, in the sense that we know that, specifically when we speak about women, we know that empowering women, you empower our communities. And a lot of the degree of the actions that have to be taken is with education and re-education in other cases. So I think that they all are interconnected in the specific level of how we need to advance as a species.
Thank you. If we do a life cycle analysis of a pear gene, the phase that has the greatest impact on the environment is cleaning. So definitely customers have an essential role to play. How can we engage them in a dialogue?
I think, again, here's a case of re-education, right? When we talk about leathers, right, and their processes, there are certain ways of tanning that are better for the environment than others. And sometimes it's great to teach our client that a little bit of nature affects, or nature's touch. It's natural, actually, when something is completely seamless without any touch of nature, it feels artificial. So accepting a little bit of a little different of a color tone in a shoe that's uneven feels more natural than this artificial evenness. So it's about the aesthetics, and here's where I think designers can bring a lot to it, like moving forward to creating this product that feels more dimensional, more human, not so industrialized.
But how can you do this dialogue? Is it in your store by explaining the products, on your internet site, another solution?
Oh, it's a multitask, right? You do it on your social, you do it in your e-com, you do it by adding extra information on the garment, you do it by traceability of your garment. You can QR code the label, and it'll take you to the page where you can read everything that was done in this garment and where it was transported. I mean, all of this it's available now, and I'm doing a lot of that, and you just communicate. But at the same time, it's better to do the action as well too, and focus whatever energy to do, actually making sure the product is well made, and then the talking comes after.
Another rising aspiration is to buy local products made with local materials. How can you respond to this as a designer?
I mean, I find that really interesting. I think it's a very interesting proposition. We were the other day for a special project, we were analyzing local British handcraftsmanship, and there were so amazing brands that do, from umbrellas to walking sticks to hats, and I think that a lot of uplifting this local handcraft, and every single country in the world has local handcraft, is important. So I do think that is a matter of focusing, and at the same time, when you're a global brand, you have a responsibility to communicate, and something I like to communicate in something that feels more of many countries than just one.
Change Now presents several startups, including some in the field of fashion. I am thinking in particular of transparency, smart production. What do you think about it? Are you using them? And do you have other expectations that innovative startups could answer?
You know, it's funny because I think that yes, there's a lot of innovation that can be done, but and for example, we use Eon, which is a traceability technology that you have to input, right, all the information into the QR code, and that explains all the client, all the good choices that you made, all the better choices that you made, but it's still self-regulated. So it's on your goodwill, shall we say. So I do think eventually there's going to be a regulatory system that comes into play in fashion, just the same way you buy an apple that's organic in the market. But I also think that there's so much to learn from our history of making garments. In Roman times, Europe was dressed in linen, wool, and leather. And I think the oldest garment in wool is around 5,000 to 6,000 years old. So I'm looking a lot at the past of how we used to construct pre Second World War, actually, before all the polyester fibers started to take over the market. So I'm really exploring into vegetable dyes and ways of doing. How do we get to the point of where we do clothes today? And you know, I say this because I feel that there's a loss of the consciousness, and this is what we're trying to do with the Chloé social media, Instagram. There's been a loss of consciousness, that understanding that everything that's surrounding you and me has been brought up to us by nature, and this connectiveness to the product and to the craft. And I always say that paper was so important when I grew up, right? Like you would save, my grandmother used to save like every little piece of paper possible, a receipt or a note to write the recipes or something. And you would save the magazines. I mean, National Geographic, Reader Digest, you know, that's like, you would save them. And we went through this process, and now we just throw magazines away. So really understanding the energy and the resources that we're taking for this product, that's something that is really, I'm really passionate about, to bring that type of awareness. And I think through that, you have to look at history.
And the last question, what is the goal you would be proud to have achieved in the next 2-3 years?
Well, in GH, it's pretty clear. We want to get to 80% of upcycle and repurpose, and then to really get at least 60% of our freight by boat, and really reduce the impact of that. And obviously there's always improvements, and there's always, but those would be like the target goals. I think that at Chloé, because of another scale, the goals are many. And we have quite an aggressive ones moving forward, from materiality to transport to life cycle, you know, everything that's going on. And we're just launching low impact denim and upcycle sneakers. So it's really, there's a lot more that one can do, that it's, in conclusion, is making a product that is more sound with the environment and of higher quality.
Thank you very much, Gabriela, for this exciting experience and all our encouragement to continue to make sustainable development sexy, as you know.
Well, that's really your line. You told me sustainability sexy, and I mean, nobody has asked me yet to be in a you know, naked photo shoot cover, but I'm ready when they ask.
And thank you. And thank you to Change Now for the invitation, and to all the online participants. Thank you, everyone.
No, thank you, Sylvie. Thank you.